Hey, this is Manny with Not Waiting to Live. I'm a former Mercedes Benz car salesman, and in this video, I'm going to cover the 11 questions I most frequently get about how to lease a car. So just a little over 2 years ago, I uploaded my first car negotiation video to YouTube, and that video was on the topic of how to negotiate a lease. Now, since that time, I've gotten a couple 100,000 views on that video and hundreds of comments. And with this video, I'm going to distill those questions down, and I've organized them in such a way that I'm going to do a question and answer style format video from the logical start of leasing to the logical end of leasing. And this video is going to be useful to anyone that's considering leasing or people that just want to learn more about how leasing works in general. And so with that, I'm going to dive right into the first question, and that's the elephant in the room. Is leasing a ripoff? Well, leasing is managed ownership. In a traditional financing deal, or you buy a car with cash, most people do not account for what the trade-in value of their vehicle will be at a future date, whenever that is. In 3 years, 7 years, 11 years, 20 years, it's left open-ended. Leasing closes that loop. So you agree to the trade-in value of that vehicle in advance. It's known as a residual value, and that's at the end of the term. And the reason I call it managed ownership is because if you return the vehicle at the agreed upon condition with the agreed upon mileage, you know every cost per mile of that vehicle. That is a manageable aspect and a tool that you can use. I personally have paid cash for used cars. I've financed new cars. I've leased a car myself. So I've done it all. This is just a tool, and I don't consider leasing a ripoff. If you understand the fundamentals of leasing as well, I think you would agree. It's a pretty transparent practice once you know how to filter through everything, and I show you how to do that in my other videos. But with that, let me move on to the next question. Can you lease without a down payment? And yes, you can, but that's going to depend on your credit qualifications. Some people might ask, what's the minimum credit score to lease? That depends. If you're above 680, you're probably good. If you're below 620, you're probably not okay. Probably not going to get approved. The amount that a dealer is going to require for a lease, or more specifically, the financial institution that's behind it. So dealers represent a manufacturer's arm. I'll also get into this video. There are third parties that speculate on leases nowadays, but the down payment that's required is going to be based on your credit score. If you do find a lease that does allow you to go with a zero down payment, do be aware that you can't just walk away from this thing if you get your accident totaled or the car gets stolen, because that seems to be the line of thought. Well, don't put a down payment down because you could lose it. Well, if you're going to lose or not lose your down payment, it's going to be because of how you're insured. Gap insurance is a way to protect yourself. Don't recommend you get that from a dealership, but get it from your insurance agency. If you're in a situation where you wreck your car, it gets stolen, and that insurance value isn't worth as much as you owe. So if your liability is up here and the value of what's stolen from you is worth here, this gap insurance needs to be covered. It's either going to be covered by you out of pocket, or it's going to be covered by an insurance policy that you pay for. But at no point do they care whether you were smart enough to put zero down on a lease or not. Now, is negotiating a lease the same as negotiating a new car? Yes, it is. And I actually recommend that you treat a lease negotiation as a new car purchase right up until the very end, actually until after you agree to the sale price of the vehicle. And I'll get into that a little bit more in this video, but the reason is leasing just complicates things. It adds a layer of confusion to the negotiations, and you're just giving leverage to the dealer to hide information. So it's best to just withhold that until the very end, and I'll get into exactly why that's to your benefit. So how do you negotiate a lease? Well, there's 4 parts to a lease, and I talk about this more in my lease negotiation videos, but you have the down payment, the depreciation payment, sales tax payment, and the rent charge. And so the down payment is just the money that you take out of your pocket and give, and that reduces the payment a certain amount. Depreciation payment is the difference between what you paid for the vehicle and what the residual value is at the end. And you divide that by the number of months that you're using the vehicle, that's your depreciation payment. So related questions I get to residual value that come up, well, how do they come up with the residual value? Residual value is the manufacturer's best guess or bet that they're willing to place on the future value of the vehicle. And that can be based on historical trade-in values. You know, if you checked out my other video where I compare new versus used versus very used, you can get an idea of how trade-in values plot over time. So you can check out that video for more information. But the manufacturer is ultimately setting these values. And nowadays, there are third parties like Ally Bank, US Bank. They're also willing to speculate on the future value of these vehicles and extend you loans for leases or lease them to you, which is to say that they own the vehicle, you lease it from them instead of leasing it from that manufacturer's financial department. So, you know, where can you find these residual values? Most people at a car dealership are not versed, educated, or interested in the finer points of leasing. Anytime you ask a car salesperson about what's the residual value, they're going to have to ask a manager or someone else. There's usually only a few people in a dealership that even have access to the residual values. It's pretty closely guarded information, but the best way for you to simulate a residual value is to just look at what the trade-in value of a current vehicle, that's the current mileage and age relative to today's purchase, that it is online right now. So if you're looking at leasing a car for 3 years, 15,000 miles a year, look at what that same car trade in for now that's 3 years older with 45,000 miles, if you follow me there. You can estimate it. That's just a rough guess, not a perfect science. Again, they're going to keep those to their best, close to the best. And is this value negotiable? It's not really negotiable directly. Indirectly, yes. So the manufacturer, if you're going at a dealership, they're not going to negotiate with you on the residual value. If you go to a third party like Ally or US Bank, they might give you a different residual value. That's a whole nother topic about the games that they're playing over there. I'm not going to get into that. But you can indirectly negotiate just by bringing an alternative to the table and selecting that alternative. Now, we're going to talk about the sales tax payment briefly. These vary by state. Some states, they only tax you on the depreciated portion of the payment, and other states will tax you on the whole value. So you're going to have to look. That's a video for another day about what that really is for your specific situation. But the last part, that rent charge, and I'll talk more about that in a second here, because there's really two main parts of a lease negotiation. You got to get the sales tax payment, or you have to get the sales price right, and then you got to get the rent charge right. So when I say negotiate the sale price, I have a whole separate video about negotiating new car price. Check that video out if you want to learn more about how to better negotiate a new car price. Let's assume you get that under orders, under wraps. Then at the end, you say, hey, write this up as a lease. Then the rent charge negotiation begins. So it's not enough to get a good sale price. You got to get both of them. You got to get your sale price right, and you got to get your rent charge right. And rent charge is the basic interest that a dealer pays for fronting the capital to you to use this vehicle. So if they have to spend $50,000 for a vehicle, and they got to take it out of their pocket. And yes, I understand they can rent or borrow or lease or finance the vehicles on their lot, but they're representing somebody has this money at large. That's not you. They're charging you interest for accessing their money. That's what the rent charge is. And it's represented in dealer terms by the term money factor. And the money factor is negotiable. Because people ask that, is the money factor negotiable? Yes, it is. Well, what's a good money factor? That's going to vary, and it's going to be reflective of the economy at large. So in general, the return on an investment is going to be proportional to the risk of an investment. So as just an understanding of at least interest rates, you should be paying about market rate or below typically for your lease interest rates because there's more certainty with a lease. If you're traditionally financing to somebody, that's open-ended. They could take the seats out, take it to a demolition derby. The car could be worth nothing tomorrow. The bank would have nothing of value in return. At least with a lease, you have a contractual agreement that you said you were going to return this car or this many mileages on this date. They have more to work on. There's more certainty. So right now, because interest rates are so low, rock bottom, see special financing at 0%, a money factor of 0.001 is probably something that you want to target. You are going to see some money factors that are slightly lower than that, but that could also be a game with acquisition fees and stuff that's removed to artificially lower that money factor. So keep an eye out for that. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But let's move on to the next question here. I know I've added some extra questions in there, but this is question number 5. The dealer says they don't discount leases. Is that true? That is not true. You need to walk away. You need to be paying no more for the sale price of your lease as if you were buying it. And that's why I recommend negotiating the sale price up front, because once you have that number, it makes it very difficult for them to walk away from that number. Because now if they say, well, hey, we charge full sticker price for our leases, then you just take their number, you put it in an email, and I show you exactly what to say when negotiating by email in one of my videos on this channel. Put it in that email, send it out to all the dealers in the region, say, hey, dealer ABC, they said they sell this car to me for this price. I'd like to lease it from you for this price. Someone's gonna bite, so don't accept that. Number 6, can you lease a loaner or a demo car? Yes, you can. This is the best possible deal you could get on a lease, because this is the most appreciation you're gonna see on a new vehicle that you can purchase. These are cars that have been driven for several thousand miles at the dealership lot and the service garage. They give them to service customers while their car is being repaired, and in turn you're getting probably double the normal discount for that vehicle. And when you lease that, because it's never been retitled, it's still sold as a new car, it's eligible for lease. I talk about that in my new car negotiation video. Now, another question, so what are all these fees associated with leasing? Well, acquisition fee, that's going to range from $400 to $900. That is the fee for preparing and structuring the lease agreement. This can be negotiable. It's kind of tough to negotiate. Your ability to negotiate this is to literally walk away from the table on this one and say, hey, I'm not going to do it unless you waive this acquisition fee. They may be willing to reduce it. They may not. It's just going to depend on how good of a deal you're getting, honestly, and that specific dealer situation and what they're able to negotiate with the manufacturer or the finance department. Document fees, so that's similar. That's the fee for preparing the documents associated with registering and titling the vehicle. The dealer's going to give you temp tags. They've got that all worked out, charging you a fee for that. Varies by state. Different states cap different document fees. So you have to check out my blog, the car blog, I'm Not Waiting to Live, to see what the most recent and relevant average document fees are. The way you would negotiate those is say, hey, can I register this myself? And when they say no, say, well, I never had the opportunity to do this myself. That's unreasonable. I don't want to pay this. They might give that to you. They might reduce it. They might not. That's up to you and them. So the enemy always gets a vote. The next question I want to say here, credit score. Actually, I already addressed that. So that's a question I've already answered for you. And we'll skip ahead to the next one. Number 9, what additional steps are needed to lease a car for a business? Well, you need to know your credit history for your business. You need to know your Dun & Bradstreet score. And if you don't know your Dun & Bradstreet score, you're probably not ready to lease in your business's name. And the reason I say that is because you need to have a history of credit lines, multiple credit lines associated with your business. A lot of guys who come into Mercedes, they want to buy a van. They might be in the trades and been in business for years. And they might have tons of cash in the bank, and they're surprised to find out they can't lease in their business's name because they don't have sufficient business-related credit history. They might have that personally, but not in the business's name. So I would check in. Otherwise, you need to have proof that you are authorized to act on behalf of your business. So you're going to have to be named with a responsibility in the articles of organization of your business, or you're going to have some other document notarized to demonstrate that you personally are authorized to act on behalf of this business, and then use the EIN in place of what a normal person would use, their social security number. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You're gonna have to talk to your accountant about decisions related to leasing and the benefits and disadvantages. That's a video for another day. Number 10, can I trade in my current lease early? Maybe, it depends. Typically, you get a few months leeway at the end in a situation they're willing to work with you. I really have a hard time seeing any more than 6 months. I'm sure it's technically possible for a dealer to waive the last 6 months of a lease, but any more than that just really seems unfeasible to me. But if you are in a situation where you want to get out of your lease early, you can consider a third-party solution like Swap a Lease. They're not sponsoring me in any way, but it is a service that I used once where I just took over a lease for a year. So you just take your remaining months and mileage and you sign that over to somebody else. I have a separate video that kind of reviews my experience with Swap a Lease and how that all worked out. I don't think that's for everybody, but it is a good solution for some people, and it did work out for me. And then the last question, the 11th question here, can I cancel a lease? And that's just going to depend at the dealership level. Some dealers, depending on the time of year, they might allow a 7 to 30 day return policy, but your best approach there is just ask and hope for the best. There's no real rule of thumb for whether or not you're going to be able to cancel your lease, and I certainly wouldn't expect that if your lease is a month old or older. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, take the time to like the video, comment if you can. This is the way the YouTube algorithm picks up my content, gives my channel more exposure, and gives me the incentive to keep making videos like this. So I cover all things vehicle negotiation on this channel. If there's something I haven't covered yet, you'd like to see me cover, reach out in the comment section below, and I hopefully can take care of that for you. So thank you for your time.